Allie, I'm going to fast forward you to your New
Yeah.
York life just because we have a lot of ground to cover and I want to make sure we get to everything. It sounds like you started off as a model or you were a model at one point in time here in New York. I
Mm-hmm.
think of you now, before this show, I was trying to figure out like even like how to label you. And I think of you as sort of like a new economy multi-entrepreneur, basically. Like, can you live with that as a title for now?
Totally. I always say I forged this last generation. We get so caught up in like that one title. It's like, why can't we wear many? Bring
Yeah.
it to that intersectionality. So
Right,
absolutely.
and you've found a way to branch into so many things, but I'm curious about, with regards to body stuff and the helter skelter, cutthroat ruthlessness of New York. You come here, you're modeling here. What was your life like then as a model in New York City?
So I got into model because I remember my dance history teacher in college. She was like, there will be a point, like a fork in the road, a turning point where you have to decide the love of dance or the love of money.
Mm.
And I mean, she
Lifequake.
was a life quake, and she was right. And I think one of the things that my senior year, I was afforded the opportunity to work in quite a few companies, and so I, was privy to the salaries and how the dancers lived, and I got to perform with them at a young age before I had to really get out there in the world and make something of it. And one of the things I came to terms with is I do not have the luxury. I do think it's a luxury to be a starving artist in some capacity, not all,
Mm-hmm.
but in
Mm-hmm.
some. I do not have the luxury, and nor do I have the desire to be a starving artist. And
Mm-hmm.
so I did, in the words of my teacher, who later called me a couple years later and was like, "What are you doing with your life?" I didn't take the love of dance. I don't want to say I took the love of money, but I knew that I, as someone who came from a family as the first college graduate. My mom is one of 10 kids. I have loads of cousins who live all over this country. And to go to college and graduate, be the first to graduate as one of the youngest cousins was a big deal. But I also knew that there is a legacy that I need to create for my family. And then it's not just my story. It's to make sure that my mom is okay and make sure my sister has opportunity. And so I had to change it up. And I remember, you see on TV, you hear about it like these models make all this money. And not that I didn't think that I couldn't model, I just knew that I could in some form. And I found out I was researching online and I was like, how to get signed to a modeling agency. I sent my information. I think at this time it was Wilhelmina. I called and they were like, great, hold on. They put me directly to someone, which I don't know who was working the front desk, but it was all the line. I mean, it was aligned because you don't normally get that. Agent got on the phone and was like, great, come in tomorrow with photos of yourself. I came in, sat down.
Wait, what did you say to that? You're like, hi, my name's Allie, and I'm a ballerina, and I want to be a model. And they were like,
Yeah.
okay, hang on, let me put you in charge with Mr. Wilhelmina.
Yes. Well, it was something to the like, I always lead with this is a fun fact. And I would say my husband doesn't love it. But I think when you call someone, like if I call, to be honest, Julie, if I called your phone right now and you picked up and I'm like, hey, girl, this is Allie Love. You literally would pretend, at least for 10 seconds, that you know me.
That's a good
Oh,
trick.
oh, I see. Oh, so you're like, hey, it's Allie Love. And so for a second, they're like going through the mental Rolodex, being like, Allie Love, do I know this Allie Love? So it gives
Exactly.
you get on the inside faster. Okay.
Yes.
Smart.
So, and one of the things, like usually at a company, someone will pick up the phone and they're not always the same person. So I'm like, hi. And I'm like, wait, who's this? They say their name and I'm like, hey, so-and-so, it's Allie Love. Now they think they need to know me. So I led with that, which was like all my go-to. And I was like, yeah, I need to be transferred there was a fitness modeling board that had just started. And I did some research. I need to be transferred over there. Picks up the phone. I say, I probably have like in my head, I'm like, I have 30 seconds before this person hangs up on me. And he was like, legit, like come in tomorrow, bring your book. Bring your book. I came in and I had
Did you have a book?
I didn't have a book. I read a lot of books, so that worked.
What are you coming in with?
I ran to CVS. I got like a photo album that looked like a portfolio and I put a bunch of photos in there. And he came into the lobby. I didn't even go back to the desk. Looked at the photos and he was like, great, I'll be right back. Came back, gave me a contract. Look over that. Let me know. I need to know by Friday. And I was like, okay, fantastic. And also, I don't know how any of this works. So now I got to go ask some people how this works. And I'd read the contract. I ended up signing it. And I started modeling for Wilhelmina, which I will say was a great experience because not only was I able to make money at that time, right? I could make some money and save money. But I met some of my best friends who I currently know today. A few of the Peloton instructors also were on that board as well. And so
Oh,
we
wow.
end up meeting each other at a very young age or knew each other prior to that through the dance world. And so I was able to reach out to them and say, hey, I need some help, and vice versa. When we got new folks on the board, they reached out to me and I was able to say, this is how it works.
What kind of money do models make at that level?
So I think it varies. And what was great about this, and this is my key if anybody ever wants to get into modeling. So you get day rates, right? And a day rate can be anything from 1,500 to 30,000. It depends on who you are. So there's a wide range and what your skill sets are and what the outlet is. But where the money was in my mind, and I'm always keen to listen. I eavesdrop all day, especially on professional conversations, not private. I have no interest. But whenever I was in the office, I would be keen to see what are the other models talking about with their agents. And I would just like kind of listen. And I found that fit modeling, which is when you have perfect, like not perfect, but you have standardized measurements, you
Right.
can work for a brand for a very long time. And I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. So I told my agent, this is what I want to do. Like, send me on these castings, even if you don't think I'm the right size. You never know. Let me see. And I ended up booking Victoria's Secret, and I did their sport. So they had
Mm.
Victoria's Sport, and I ended up working for 5 to 7 years as a fit model, two days a week. I had consistent income, no matter if I booked a shoot or not. Which I did book shoots often. I was very fortunate, but I ended up having a consistent modeling job to save money, to like literally make money.
This New York City, so I'm outside the glass on the modeling industry. I like
Sure.
know some folks who worked in it. I saw their lives change. I saw their social lives change a lot in that industry, and I got a sense that they were starting to make some money, but like I couldn't really tell. Like, can you say what kind of money? What's the
Yeah.
yeah?
And I love this. I will say, I want to preference this by saying, I love this conversation because sometimes when it comes to money, we get so nervous. And I think the reality of it, and especially women, is that in the workplace, you don't talk about what you make and you keep
Um,
it so private. But it's like destigmatizing this concept and this concept of talking about money and getting comfortable with the fact of when you know better, you do better or you ask for better.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I
That's
think that that
that's
is important. So,
that's
for
how they
example, in the,
suppress wages because we don't talk about
yes,
money.
yes.
And that's
So,
Chad has an excellent podcast that was just nominated for an AMB
whoop,
over at
whoop.
Audible that is all about. Well, you tell him. You say you give him
No,
the
I was
log
just
line.
gonna say 3 Ambies, but
3. Oh,
that's neither
excuse
here nor
me.
there. It's called
Ah,
Direct Deposit. It's on Audible. It's all about what happens when Black people get money, like and how we get money,
Mm.
basically. So these
Ooh.
are genuine curiosities. I'm not trying to be invasive. I always wonder about models. I always wonder about like what kind of agency do they have for themselves by way of how much like the money that they're making. I have watched some sort of leverage the social contacts that they make by way of
Yeah.
the job, but it's a little dangerous, right? Because there's also like shady people connected to that industry who will try to leverage them for whatever they want. And so I really am curious. Like, I know how expensive it is to live in New York. Like, what kind of money
Yeah.
do these people make?
So I mean, I don't know. I can't speak to that, but what I can say is the industry is different, right? You have various areas of that industry, especially
Uh,
now because now everyone quote unquote can be a model. You're on Instagram, you have a
mm,
following. Therefore, you are now the new magazine, right?
mm-hmm.
You are now the new subscription. Your following is a subscription. And
Right.
I think that right there you can leverage and monetize. And that's what most folks do. I think in the world that I played in terms of having an agent and everything being more so behind a paywall
Mm.
and being protected that way, and not necessarily like engaging on Instagram as much then. It was more of like focusing on how can I make sure I maximize my clients. And no shade to either. It's just that that was the area that I played in. And so as a fit model, you make 250 to 500 an hour depending on the client. And depending on the hours you work. So you might come in and you could have a set booking where you're like, I know I work 6 hours, so 3 hours on this day and 3 hours on the next day, guaranteed.
Got you.
That they have to pay no matter what because it is my livelihood and that's what I'm booking out time for. So you'll get that money
mhm.
no matter what. But then there are days where they need you for 8 hours and they need you, they need you for literally 11 hours. So as long as you're flexible and you're available, you make that money. And so I will say having that consistent client during the time of like my formative years was impactful. It allowed me time to think. I learned a lot. I mean, I worked with a team of women that are still really close to me right now. One of them works on my company, Love Squad, actually. Like one of the head designers that was at Victoria's Secret, she actually designed the sweatshirt, Love
Oh,
Squad. Like
fire.
All
we work
right.
together now.
Dope.
Yes. And I learned so much about apparel. I learned so much about sizing apparel, what's great about it, what's not so great about it. And I've been able to be impactful. And even at Peloton, as we think of our apparel, all of my information was from that time. It lends itself to sit at a table in a room to say function meets style and how can we have both and what the intersection of that is.
Mm.
And so it was I mean, it was amazing. It was dope.